Hi, this is Steven Hernandez, and welcome back to Steven Hernandez's Nonprofit Fundamentals. Something I want to talk to you all about today is something that I hate. Not just me, but many other nonprofit professionals. And I think this is one of the things that the nonprofit profession really drops the ball on, which is what we're here for, right? We're here to talk about things that are challenging and things that we can do better together with. So what I want to talk about is the issue of nonprofit HR, specifically the terrible problem of hiring, retaining, and or letting go of talent in the nonprofit field. I cannot tell you how many times as a staff person, as a consultant, or now as someone who manages my own foundation, I have seen a nonprofit organization completely botch a hiring process. Something you all need to keep in mind as nonprofit professionals is that the vast majority of us are grant funded. Our grants are time limited, which means that, for example, if you have a one-year grant, or if you're lucky enough to have even a 2-year grant, and it's for a specific position, if you make the wrong decision, if you take a long time to fill that position, so let's say your process takes a year or two because you don't have dedicated people, not necessarily dedicated HR people, but you don't have the dedication to fill that position, you drag out the process, and then you make the wrong hire, you may lose 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of that grant because you've made the wrong decision. Remember, our grants are time limited, and we really need to show outcomes at the end of this time period. So it's absolutely critical that we make the right decisions when we hire someone and we work hard to retain that talent. And so this issue of churn, and not only is it just bad for morale, bad for the organization, but it really has a direct impact in terms of our ability to retain funding. So I want to talk about a couple things that I see as chronic problems in the nonprofit field that need to be addressed. First and foremost, how we even hire. So too often I've seen a nonprofit organization handle their hiring by having either everyone in the organization participate, or perhaps an executive director, or perhaps a trustee who may not be uncomfortable with or have no experience in the HR process. And the hiring process tends to be, unfortunately, very sloppy, very unprofessional, and it either takes too long or it goes too fast. It is absolutely critical that the nonprofit field do what it can to mimic best practices in the HR field. Now, before anyone gets all upset, I know many nonprofits don't have the time or resources to have a dedicated HR department. That's not what I'm talking about. But I am sure you have donors, supporters, board members, volunteers, or someone in the community who's willing to, perhaps as a graduate level program, help you design an HR process that will work for you. So have really basic things in place. So when you post a job, be very specific about what the position will entail. For example, if this position is a part of a year-long grant and you're posting it 8 months into the grant, and you have perhaps 4 months of dedicated funding for the position, you need to be upfront about that. And I know that's a difficult, prospect to put out there, but again, if you're looking to hire the right person, that right person may only be able to work with you for 4 months, and then you're going to have to get rid of them, or they may have to fundraise for their position. Again, that's going to give a lot of people pause. You need to be upfront about that. Be clear and concise with what the job entails. Now, again, I know, on the nonprofit field, I love you. Everyone's doing 3.5 jobs. I get that. But even if that's true, be specific about what the 3.5 jobs are with this position that you're trying to hire. Next, be very deliberate. Be very intentional with who's in the room when you're doing the interview process. Have it structured. I can't tell you again, I can keep using that phrase, how many times I've seen a nonprofit hiring process be really this kind of freewheeling, just kind of general conversation about our feelings and what this work means to us. Again, that's important, and I understand that is valuable to the people that you're hiring, but you should also have very specific conversations about what do you bring to the table. Do your skills match with what we're posting? Something I've seen is because when these processes are very unstructured, a candidate can come in, they can blow you away. They want to do this, they want to do this, this is the idea that they have. and you get swept away in the narrative, and you start to bend your job position. You start to change what you're thinking of, because this person can kind of take you in a new direction. Is that the best thing to do? If you have a very specific role in mind for them, shouldn't you stick onto that? And perhaps one of the best HR things I've ever been told, which is whenever you want to hire someone, know the one or two, no more than 3 things they absolutely have to have. These are skills that are absolute must to have before you hire anyone. So for example, if you're hiring a development professional, do they need to have experience in grants management, in-person fundraising, major gifts? Do they have to have all 3? What level of experience in all 3? Do they just need to have 1? Are they willing to be trained? Or do you really need to have them have experience with direct, one-on-one, large gifts with board members and high-value donors? If that's something absolutely critical that you have to have, it's a time-limited thing, and you love this person but they don't have the experience, do you want to take the chance with them? I'm not here to say you should or should not, but it's definitely something to think about. Last but not least, and we're going to get much more into each one of these individual topics as we go forward, is nonprofit organizations need to do a better job of knowing when they have to cut their losses and letting someone go. I do not understand, because of the pressures that we've already outlined. Time-limited funding that is limited in and of itself, nonprofit organizations, in my experience, both as a consultant, a staff person, and as a funder, drag out the process of letting someone go if they're not working, or transitioning them into a different role. And so it becomes, most nonprofits are very small shops. So if someone was hired for a very specific role, and for whatever reason, perhaps because the conversation was not upfront and clear to begin with, and they are not interested in doing the job with which they were hired, or they are not performing in the job, a clear conversation of, these are the things that you need to do to make sure you're on point. We need you to do this. This is, if you want to call it a corrective action plan, whatever you want to call it. But by X date, you need to meet these goals, and if you don't, then we're going to have to terminate your contract, or we're going to have to let you go, whatever the phrase may be. And we cannot be afraid of letting people go out of some misplaced sense of guilt, or well, we feel bad or whatnot. You hired them. You hired them. Again, if you do your work up front, then that will much less likely happen, because you're hiring the right people up front. But I'm not advocating that people should get fired all the time. Believe me, that's not what I'm saying. But an organization needs to know what its deliverables are, and they need to have people in place who can deliver on those things. And if you have someone who's not ready to do that, then you need to have a very firm conversation and be prepared to end their employment if that's what needs to happen. So, again, just to be clear, I'm not advocating that everyone get fired, or we're trying to terminate people right away at their first infraction. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the nonprofit field needs to do a better job up front, so at the back end, we don't have to have those difficult conversations. But if we have to, we need to be prepared to have them. If someone is unable or unwilling to fulfill the tenets of their contract, or the grant contract, or whatever it is they need, the role they need to play to make the organization successful, nonprofit organizations need to do what corporate America does. You have a corrective conversation, you outline what the person needs to do to make sure they can maintain their employment and to be successful, and you put a time limit on that. And if they're unwilling or unable to meet those stipulations, then you need to let them go. So, and again, I recognize that might be a heretical opinion in the nonprofit field, but it's definitely a conversation that needs to start happening with the increasing competition around grants, staff, everything. We need to start being sharper, better, run more effectively. I'm happy to talk about any of these conversations, any of these conversation points in the comments. Please suggest some things. What are some nonprofit HR best practices that you feel can be or should be implemented in an organization that you know or work with, or that you've seen that have been successful? Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed what you've seen right here, please click on subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, and this has been Steven Hernandez's Nonprofit Fundamentals.